Hello everyone, welcome back to Selene Apoptosis. Now let's go ahead and continue. So I did some replaying and skipping around, so I felt like this was a good time to show a little bit what's new. Well, what I haven't gotten at least. So let's go ahead and continue. The girl put her lean finger with a neat black nail to her lips, while the fingers of her other hand shaped the figure of a man. She pointed at the figure with her eyes. Ethan felt sick of the farce that was happening. He thought he should call the cops immediately. The hand clutching the phone continued to hang limply. The finger man looked around and started walking along the window slope with his finger legs. 1, 2, 3. Then something else happened. Ethan failed to understand what it was. The next moments, the finger man was walking on the sill, and the girl was making it with her other hand. She smiled widely and put both palms on her chest. She looked absolutely happy.
I was invited.
Suddenly, she cast a gloomy look at Ethan. Her black eyes gave a cold glimmer.
It's really rude to come in without an invitation.
A moment later, the girl reached for something behind her back, quickly pulled it over to her lips, and took a sip. Ethan's throat became tight with blood that abruptly rushed to his head. How did you get this? The girl traced Ethan's gesture with a genuinely surprised look, and the next moment she parted her fingers. Hope's huge colorful cup, the one they just got at the store, tinkled hurtfully as it struck the floor, and then shattered to pieces. Just like that, there was a brief moment when the cup was lying peacefully on the floor. Ethan got enough time to hope it would endure the fall. And then the fragments burst everywhere at once, as the fierce white light broke out from inside. But no, that was milk. Just some milk.
You shouldn't have spooked me, you know. Now look at what you've done. The poor cup is so broken. So many eeny-meeny tiny pieces. There's no way to mend it at all.
Ethan was suffocating. What the hell are you doing here? What do you want from me? The girl bit her lip and twisted a fallen shoulder strap between fingers. The top of the dress slid even lower.
Do you want me to leave? But I may run into Hope. Right at the door, Ethan. She forgot her pass. Will be here any minute. What will the poor girl think?
The girl looked over her shoulder and her face instantly lit up.
It's her! Here she is! Hope is simply amazing, accurate to a minute. Hello!
The girl turned over on her stomach, leaned on the sill, and waved vigorously to someone invisible. Her dress completely slid down. That bitch. Ethan would bet her tits are flashing right through the window. She will stop right now. And I will just skip a little bit. One moment. He must. something that settled in his house. Skin got covered in cold goosebumps. He could feel the eyes again, focused on a single point on the back of his head. Something was watching him. He tried to forget, to repress, to convince himself that nothing was happening, but something was looking at him, and it wasn't a matter of belief. The silence in his ears was a thin, tinkling note. It is watching. It is watching. Ethan jumped on his feet frantically, looking around. A short, desperate cry escaped from his chest, and his eyes with a bulging mesh of burst capillaries opened wide. There was nothing behind him. Nothing but the black void of the room, but he couldn't trust it. Ethan knew he wasn't alone. God Almighty, he wasn't alone. Ethan wiped his mouth. A long, red smear appeared on his sleeve and ruffled his hair. The skin on the back of his neck was scalding cold. Ethan was afraid, but what was he afraid of? He tried to think coherently, to crumple his formless, unfathomable terror into a single image, but couldn't. He was afraid of the shadows, the unfamiliar smell of the apartment, those thoughts that fluttered in his head like trapped moths. He was afraid of what he might say out loud if he tried to speak to the dark emptiness of the room. Ethan suddenly saw the white dress hem swing the still, wax-like air, the rippling flesh of the membrane, the curtains at the open window, the death shroud. He remembered the terrible ghost and what he had to do. Ethan was suffocating. He sank to the floor. Was he afraid of the white-dressed wig? Yes. But the fear was deeper, bigger, and the source of it was elsewhere. This was not the cause, but one of the effects. The dark room swayed before his eyes. It was intelligent, alive. Ethan could smell its foul breath. He has to go. He has to find the house from the letter. Maybe then he'll find the answers too. Maybe the two of them will figure out a way to escape. When Ethan crossed the threshold of his apartment, the hardest thing was not to run. He found the right streets with no trouble at all. The roads in this part of the suburb formed a simple, clear scheme, so he didn't need any help. Still, Ethan desperately wanted to pull up in front of a little house with the lights still on. Run out on the porch, knock on the door and ask. Just ask. Ask anything. Ethan swallowed with dry throat and kept driving. House number 8 was hidden behind the trees, cut off from its neighbors by a wide lawn. Hell, you can't call this a lawn anymore. The grass crept into the cracks in the driveway and had taken root there in thick tufts. Among the weeds on the lawn, wild mint stirred its leaves drowsily, just as if an enormous hand torn out a patch from one of the fields Ethan was driving by on his way here, and left it in the middle of a sleepy street as a prank. The night outside Ethan's car was fresh and cool. This and the ride itself cleared his head a bit, but now he was sinking back into sticky uneasiness. As he got out of the car, he slammed the door loudly, that the house would know he wasn't scared. But of course he was. He was scared as hell. Still didn't know what he was afraid of. He then went to the porch and stood at the steps for a moment, looking at the front door. Then they walked around the house. There are no lights in any of the windows. Now I'll go back to my car and get out of here. But Ethan didn't do anything like that. Instead, he went up to the porch and, after a moment's thought, put aside the flower pot the letter mentioned. He'll just check things up, and that's it. The spare key was in place. He won't go inside. It's just a small check. The key turned in the lock. It all went incredibly slow, as if Ethan was terrified of what he was doing, and he was. Just... a burst of sharp pain burned the back of his head. The door, the key, and the hand that held it faded in crimson black nothingness. Ethan was seeing a terrible dream. He was back in the white room with Hope. Hope sat on the faded red sofa, her hands clasped in her lap. Her eyes were staring into nothing. Ethan thought Hope wasn't seeing him again. But she was. Hope looked up at him with her blue eyes, and in reeling horror, Ethan realized how much pain there was in them.
She had the key, Ethan. All this time, she had the key. She has all the keys.
Who? Ethan wanted to ask, but didn't have time. Because Hope wasn't there anymore. Only her head kept lying in the sofa, severed, oozing blood from the stump of the neck. Suddenly, the head moved. Ethan tried to scream, and he couldn't, as he had no mouth. All he could do was watch. Watch Hope's terrible severed head slowly turning towards him, looking for him with dry, glassy eyes. Watch the black snakes moving in her hair, and the mess of yellow-red entrails spilling out of the gripped, gutted sofa. Ethan tried to scream again. The aberrant vision faded. But the eyes remained. Hope's empty, lifeless eyes. Through the right, tight, throbbing pain, Ethan didn't realize right away that he was actually seeing them. Hope sat opposite to him, pale in the moonlight. Both of them were in some room. Ethan reached for her with all his being, but he couldn't move. He was well tied. Hope's hair was light and long again. Is that a wig? The thought was out of place, almost ridiculous.
Ethan, why did you do this? Why did you do all of this?
He might have believed that she really needed an answer if not for a tightly rolled gag in his mouth.
Now I have to kill you. I have to. Do you understand?
She sobbed.
But first I have to confess something. I read your email. After what happened at the couldn't help it. I found this address in one of the emails. Her address.
Hope, please. It's not what you think. All that came out of Ethan's throat was a grunt.
Shh. Don't strain yourself. You have a wound on your head, and if you strain yourself, you may lose consciousness. I haven't told you everything yet. It's important for me to share. Laura says it helps. I don't know. Does it help Ethan?
Another sob.
I parked nearby and waited. Waited for so long. I knew you were coming sooner or later. I saw her come and go, and you weren't there. I was beginning to doubt it, but you did come. You are here.
Hope smiled, yet her eyes remained blank.
I'm so tired. You may hate me for it, but I had to confess. It's not an easy task for me, you know. I hate lying. Oh, I'm sick of myself, Ethan. Why does it have to end like this?
Ethan didn't have an answer.
My problem is that I can't lose. I never learned to. I tried, Ethan. Tried so hard. But this is stronger than me. You know, when I was a little girl, my dad took me to the pool. I couldn't swim, and he wanted us to go kayaking together. I had those cute inflatable armbands, with tiny bear cubs on them. Can you imagine?
Again, the terrible, glassy smile.
And so the lesson ended, and I still had no idea what I was supposed to do. But I couldn't let my daddy down. So I kept floundering in the pool until my lips turned blue. The coach had to literally pull me out of the water. Oh, but I think I haven't changed since then. Not a bit. I have to be number one, always. The best. One and only. I can't have it any other way. Do you follow me, Ethan?
There wasn't even a hint of hatred in the way she looked, the way she spoke, and that's what filled Ethan with mesmerizing, crippled dread. Hope loomed over him, the pipe in her hands, so close that Ethan could see the rust caps clearly.
I'm scared, Ethan. I'm terribly, awfully scared.
She ran her hand gently over his cheek.
I love you.
You don't have to do this, Hope. Ethan would have said if he only could. But she had to. Hope shrieked, as if she had to squash an ugly bug, and brought the pipe down on his skull with a crunch. Then, once more. And more. She repeated this simple action until her husband's head turned into a nauseating, yellow-red mass. Her father, who was a doctor, would probably have called it inhomogeneous, because there certainly were quite large fragments of bone left in it. No matter how hard Hope tried to put a quick end to it, she was just an ordinary girl. She did what she could, placing the lack of ability with effort. When she finished, Hope put the pipe down next to the body. She wanted to wipe off the blood and all the rest, but that wouldn't be wise. The pipe was the murder weapon after all. Then Hope turned on her phone and made all the necessary calls. She confessed to what she had done and all the details, yet she had left some things out. In the year of sex scandals, she wanted her husband to be remembered as Ethan Harrison, who truly loved history, not Ethan Harrison, who cheated on his poor wife. After all, she really did love him. Covering what was left on her husband with her cream-colored coat, Hope felt exhausted. She still had to take care of herself. To her shame, that part of the plan Hope didn't think through. Suddenly she remembered there was a window on the second floor. The thought was simple, clear, almost joyous. It did not quite belong to her. Something in the house seemed to take pity on her and gave her a clue. The window was open and there were lots of trusty cables in the room upstairs, which was convenient, as her body became terribly heavy, as if made of stone, and every little thing took great effort. In the very last moments before both her feet were in the air, I thought she might survive or suffer for a long time before it was all over. But it was over soon enough. Stein, essay copy 1. Stupid task and I can't see how it helps. Guess I'll try to just type something. Ass cheeks. Ass cheeks. Ugh, I'm dumb. Monsters are back to eat me. Today, monsters are back to eat me. Their eyes scratch and scratch until they get to the core. I hate their tiny fingers and how they smell of chewing gum and bruises. They love to rip my heart away. See if it has insect legs they could pluck out. Behind it as well, and the thickets of letters. And I build ladders to get where they would never find me. In the cell in the back of my head, I am free. Happy dreamland. Fill me and thou shalt be full. The fruit are sour and bitter to the taste. This is the food, this is the drink. Hey, you're not supposed to be here. Says who? The Air and It Show. You don't have to do this. Indistinct. Winter Wonderland. How to build a snowman. It begins with a core, an application point. You will need material too. Harvesting it might prove difficult. If you manage, however, the fruit of your labor may be plentiful. Behold the absolute ceaseless manifestation.
とある雨の夜に見知らぬ綺麗な人が玄関先に現れた。
君は